there, this is Connor the Language Czar. So in this video I'm going to talk about Polish culture in the south of Brazil. Yeah, I know that's not what you think when you think of Brazil. Obviously you think of samba, surf, sexy girls dancing very crazily and the debauchery scene of carnival. But there are other minority cultures in Brazil. Brazil is an enormous country, it's half a continent basically. And in the very south of Brazil, I've done a few videos about the other cultures that I managed to encounter, like German speaking, Italian speaking, Ukrainian speaking in the south of Brazil that I witnessed firsthand myself earlier this year, the beginning of 2016. And as part of that project, I also went in search of Polish speakers. Now, I actually don't speak Polish. I do speak at least I speak German and Italian quite well, and I do speak some Ukrainian, and I do, as well as Russian, which is a cognate language. So usually you can kind of understand a lot of what people are saying if they use those languages together, more or less. Not to say they're the same. But with Polish, I don't speak Polish, but I did go to the south of Brazil, and I went to Paraná State, and I found in Curitiba, the capital, lots of remnants of Polish culture. They have a Polish park there. It's called Pope John Paul II Park, who was obviously the Pope from Poland. Yeah, he was there especially during the Cold War. He's quite a prominent, I guess, global figure at the time, political as well as religious. So you have those vestiges of Polish culture in the south of Brazil, but you don't have so many native speakers. I actually couldn't find anyone who spoke Polish, and that's even though 1 million people in the state of Paraná alone are supposedly of Polish descent. Now, here's a little clip of people speaking in Polish from my friend Eline, who works at a local TV station. She's a TV presenter there and journalist, and she did find Polish speakers. So here's a little bit of a clip about Polish culture in the south of Brazil.
Dzisiaj Betlejem, wesoła nowina.
Bom dia.
Bom dia. Tudo beleza?
Tudo certo?
Tudo, dzień dobry.
Na casa da família Filhakoski, na Serra da Garganta, mesa é lugar de confraternização e de muita fartura.
Esse é o pernil, pieczonka świńska, zimny nogi, chrzan, bołasia z miodu, skwarki meluny, chleb na bochenkach, podkolany, pirogi z łepa świńskiego, okrasa wędzona.
So even though I couldn't find Polish speakers myself, I did think a little bit about why that might be. So the difference as to why Polish has not survived as a spoken language to the same extent as, say, German, Italian, and Ukrainian in the south of Brazil is probably because of several factors. One of them is the fact that Poles intermarried very quickly. Now, that means that if you marry someone who doesn't speak natively Polish, in their case, so maybe they spoke Italian, maybe they spoke German, maybe they spoke Portuguese, Spanish, French, whatever, Arabic if they were Lebanese, or Japanese if they were Japanese descent, then what are your kids going to speak? Maybe they speak Polish to a certain extent, but there's less of an incentive because one of the parents doesn't speak it. So as a result of that, Polish, they just integrated quicker and adopted Portuguese as their main language. The second reason I can think about is economics. Now, German was really important in the south of Brazil up until the Second World War. It's actually the lingua franca in large parts of the south of Brazil. That's because Germans had a lot of economic power, and they were people just who didn't speak German natively wanted to speak German to do business with them, and it became important to know German as well as Portuguese. Now, this ended basically with the Brazilian government's policy of Brazilianization, where they tried to stop people in the south of Brazil, everyone in Brazil speaking other languages other than Portuguese. Now, they had political reasons for that. There was a war in Europe, obviously, and the Nazis were in power in Germany, and they were worried that maybe they would have issues in Brazil if people in South Brazil were not loyal to the Brazilian state. This is actually happening because there had been a war in the south of Brazil which took place in the 19th century, a war for succession. I spoke about that in my other video about Italian Brazilians. And Garibaldi, for example, he was one of the leaders of the secession. Now, because of that, people didn't have an incentive, because of the economic strength of Germans in the south of Brazil, people didn't have as big an incentive to learn, like, Ukrainian, Polish, Russian, whatever other minority language it was. they would start to learn, you know, German as a second language after Portuguese. So this kind of hastened the demise of, I guess, the importance of the Polish language in the south of Brazil, even though there were such a large number of immigrants who had originally moved from Poland. Now, so there are my reasons about why Polish language is not as strong as the others in the south of Brazil. It does exist, and there are definitely, you know, Polish cultural organizations. There's still a diaspora there. There's still some context with Poland itself, but it's not as strong as the other three immigrant diasporas that I came into close contact with. So they were German, Italian, and Ukrainian when I was in the south of Brazil earlier this year. So write me in the comment section below if you've had any experience with Polish diaspora or one of the other diasporas in the south of Brazil. Let me know about your experience interacting with them. Maybe you're from south of Brazil and you've kept in contact with your historical roots, whether they happen to be in Asia, Africa, or in Europe. And I love reading all your comments, so be sure to let me know how you've experienced this phenomena in the south of Brazil or somewhere else in the world, or where you've been traveling and maybe you managed to practice another minority language because there was an historical immigrant group there, or they had moved, or they had, you know, with for some historical reason found themselves there, or maybe even more recent immigrants. So definitely let me know how your experience went. So that's it from this video. That was my fourth of 4 videos about my trip to southern Brazil earlier this year, about the different communities that I met when I went in search of Germans, Italians, Poles, and Ukrainian speakers in the south of Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul, Paraná, and Santa Catarina. Now, I'm going to be going back to Brazil pretty soon, so there are going to be lots of videos coming from Brazil in the next couple of months. I have to still book my tickets, but I'm guessing February. So looking forward to another great Brazilian trip and showing you why it's my favorite country in the world. So it's até logo from this video, which is goodbye in Portuguese. Until the next one.